I'm going to share with you a lot of stories. I am dressed though from back about 200 years ago for today's event, the Seminole Indian War battle we're going to do later. But I want to take you on a journey way, way back when people used to use only what nature gave them. Seminole, today you might know that as St. Augustine. Sataraya, which today would be Jacksonville, or the Tamukwa Preserve up there. And another village where I live was called Nokoroko, which is now Daytona Beach. If you went to the dominant tribe of South Florida, they lived mostly on the west coast, and that was the Calusa. You might have heard of the story of Ponce de Leon, the namer of Florida, on his second voyage coming to Florida, how the Calusa attacked him, and how he barely made it on shore before they were attacked. When Hernando de Soto, the Spanish explorer looking for gold, came in 1539, searching for gold all throughout the southeastern United States, the first village he spent his winter in was with the Appalachian people. Later, when the survivors of his expedition made it back to Spain, they made some of the earliest maps of the southeastern United States. And on the maps, they wrote mistakenly Appalachia way up where the mountains are. And that's how the mountains on the eastern United States got their name, Appalachian Mountains. A lot of times people have this impression of native people, a teepee. Tribes on the eastern United States never lived in a teepee. In the east, our houses are very permanent because we became farmers. If this one's made out of flint or chert, this one is shell, and this big one here is a shoulder blade of the buffalo. Now a lot of people don't realize it, but at one time, buffalo did live here in Florida. The deer's toenails can get boiled in water until melted into glue. That's how glue was made back then. Hooves and horns, fish skins, many things can make glue. These can also be used in rattles. Traditionally, we would have bells on our feet that made noise for dancing and a powwow today, but traditionally, this is what you would have found us wearing back then. This tendon here came from a deer back, on the back of the deer. We would soak this in water for just a few minutes, pound it with a rock until it breaks apart and becomes string. When it's wet, it's a little bit stretchy. When it dries, it tightens back and it holds things very well. Some of the oldest clay pots of the United States are here in Florida along the St. Johns River. And so clay pots go back to about 4,000 years, where people have learned to shape the clay, dry the clay, bake it in the fire, and pottery. And it began to spread everywhere. Some beautiful shells, and make beads or jewelry. And the markings that you see on here would basically be kind of like what a person's identity badge. Okay, who are you? What do you do? What clan are you? Different reeds and canes. Could be used to imitate the animals in hunting, sometimes to call them, sometimes to make yourself sound as another animal. This is the bone from the turkey's wing. I cut the ends off, hollow it out, and it makes the sound of the female turkey to hen. So you can make a turkey call. As a matter of fact, they will set up trading posts and sign some of the earliest treaties with what would be called the Seminoles. Now that name is a word in the Spanish gave them, Cimarron. Many of them were Creek tribes coming out of Alabama at the end of the Creek Wars with Andrew Jackson, and they settled into North Florida. Many of them were runaway slaves from South Carolina seeking freedom here in Spanish Florida. It's probably because in the Muscogee language there's no R pronunciation. So instead of Cimarron, it became Seminole. And so that's probably how the name comes about, Seminoles. And by the 1800s, As the United States takes over Florida in 1821, these people have established themselves here in Florida. Some are even part of the old tribes that didn't die. Some are runaway slaves hiding in Florida. And so they've established themselves here, and they're no longer living off of only nature. Yes, they can still go to nature if they need to. Some of the knowledge was still there and all this, but mainly they're living off of items that they had traded for years. As soon as we realized this horse was not a big dog, we wanted one. And we started getting their things. We love the pretty colors. And still today, you can see that in the Seminole clothing of the patchwork in the modern times. We love the shinies. At first we wore it all in our chests and our ears and our nose. We loved those things that they could bring from across the ocean.